Hey parents and coaches, are your kids using the right glove? The most important skill for youth athletes to learn is how to play proper catch. The problem is, most youth gloves are made with bad leather and are too big for small hands. They actually make it harder to play catch. That's why former Major League Baseball shortstop Kevin Smith created Cali gloves. Cali gloves are crafted from 100% Japanese kip leather and are the perfect size for kids. All Cali gloves come with palm slits, finger loops, and elastic wrist lacing that encourage proper hand placement, the right closing patterns, and give kids more confidence to go make plays. Cali gloves even allow parents to break in the glove without stretching out the fit. It's the glove Kevin wishes he had growing up, and the glove all his teammates want for their kids. Visit caligloves.com to learn more and help your kids play better catch. That's Cali Gloves, K-A-L-I gloves.com.
Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host Keith Glasser, who's repping the Maris baseball shirt today. How we doing?
I think this is back-to-back weeks. I'm great. How are you? But this is. I think I would consider this new old school.
It's the new logo, or
It's
at least
it's the new mascot. Yeah. But I think this is a relatively older shirt.
Okay.
For those of you young bucks out there, we used to have we had a different shooter when we were in our college. The Shooter the Fox. For those out there that are wondering about the Red Foxes, our mascot's name is Shooter. I think. Did we change that?
No, oh, geez, that's a good question. I don't know. But I dressed up in the mascot for a basketball game at one point. For all of you out there, I was the mascot for a basketball game during a winter break.
I think Meyer dressed up as the mascot too. I don't think it was for a ball match. I think it was just for
fun.
Just for fun.
That tracks. All of that tracks 100%. Today's topic, we're in that mid-September range, and you got all your fall schedules out. Saw some stuff pop up on my radar with some of the scheduling and wanted to just take a second to level set on the recruiting rules to a certain extent so that people understand like when coaches can actually leave campus. This is particularly pertinent for the 27 class and the 28s, although we've probably mentioned how the 28s are not at the forefront for evaluations at the moment for any level of college baseball. But wanted to touch on a couple things because I had some schedules come across my desk, if you will, with tournaments in the end of October and the early weeks of November. And it jogged my memory that there'll be no coaches at those tournaments. And I think the crux of this conversation is understand the rules and what you're going to get out of playing those games. The dead period starts October 13th. So I believe October 12th is a Sunday, and that is the last day that Division I coaches are allowed to leave campus to evaluate players until March 1st of 2026. You're in a quiet period throughout that whole window, which we've defined in the past as not being able to leave campus for in-person evaluations. So any type of exposure you're going to get to a Division I school is going to need to happen on their campus. This is particularly important if your tournaments fall outside of that window. There's absolutely nothing wrong with playing games. I think me and you would both agree that I think that window is probably better served for getting stronger and working in the off season or playing another sport. But just understand that if you are going to play games during that window, that there will be no Division I coaches in attendance, and likely no, if they're not 26s, there's not going to be any Division II or Division III coaches there either. It's not the norm. in terms of being recruiting 27s that early at either of those levels. So important thing to understand the calendar. Wanted to bring that up.
Sure. Of note to this podcast, we have changed the name of the mascot at Marist. Our beloved mascot is now called Frankie the Fox as of 2017. So I was unaware.
8 years of unawareness.
Yeah, no, I mean, generally speaking, for us Marist alum, we just lovingly refer to ourselves as foxes. So we never really referred to the mascot, if you will. So it has been officially changed, his name, to Frankie the Fox. So fun fact for all the alumni out there who may have not known, like myself. No, I think this is our 100th short, by the way. So we're pushing about 2 years of doing this. So congratulations to us. But I think the fall schedule, especially for youth baseball, right? And I'll bracket in 27s, 8s, 9s, and anyone younger than that. From a recruiting standpoint, you have to at least have a feel for what the calendar looks like. It's worth asking these questions to the other coaches as well, because it's not, if you're an upstate New York kid and you're trying to go down to Florida and play in November, no one can be there. And it's not to say that no one can, right? Because Division 2s and 3s can, but the reality of there being a plethora of Division 2s and 3s that are going down to that tournament is very slim, right? They're going to exhaust their recruiting budget during the course of the summer, so you're not going to get a lot of 3s down there. You'll probably get a handful of local Division 2s. By local, I mean your Florida Division 2s, which are really, really good programs, and that's a maybe, right? It depends on what their fall schedule looks like. And I think one of the things that gets lost in a lot of the fall recruiting stuff sometimes too, especially outside the confines of the Division I calendar, is that these coaches, it mirrors the spring a little bit, where they're on campus coaching their kids, right? There's going to be, depending on how they set their fall up, but you're going to be practicing, you're going to be playing, you might have individuals, they might be having game dates, you might have inter squads, things like that, where it's a lot more important for those coaches to be on campus coaching their kids up during the fall than it is going out and seeing a bunch of 27s and 28s that, they're in the same boat as a lot of these other schools where they don't really know what their roster looks like at the end of the year. They're probably going to go transfer portal first before they get into the high school realm. So they're looking at it as why am I going to go waste time and money to go watch 27s and 28s when, they're not recruitable for another year or two. And I don't even know what my roster is going to look like at that point. I'd rather stay with my team, develop my players, and be here for our inter squads and such so that we can be really good in the spring. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just we're going to go down there, we're going to play, and there's coaches there. You could be spending a decent amount of money to go down to some of these tournaments, and you're not going to see one college coach. Not one. There might be some pro scouts there, but I mean, let's be honest. The pro guys, they don't really care. Unless you're a legit first round draft pick right now as a 27 or 28, they're not evaluating you. They're just kind of there to see if someone's throwing, nitro on the bump. And at this point in the year, there's probably not a ton of guys that are doing it. So I just think that it's being smart about it. It's asking those questions, and not necessarily just accepting this is what it is. Well, it might cost you $3,500, to go to this. For what? No one's going to see you play. So what does it matter? You're better off saving that money and investing it in something else from a development standpoint, from a weight room standpoint, from, whatever it might be. Otherwise, just light it on fire in your front yard because it's not going to be beneficial or useful to you in that process. So, having an idea of what that looks like, and I think the other thing is especially at the youth levels, you have fall baseball going on all the way down to 7, 8, 9U. It's fall baseball. Get them to compete, have some fun, love the game, keep them in the game for as long as we can. It's it doesn't need to be a year-round sport. Not every sport needs to be a year-round sport to begin with, but baseball specifically does not need to be a year-round sport. Let kids be kids. Let them go play other sports in the fall. Let them do stuff. It's not going to hinder their chances of going and playing college athletics if they play other sports. It likely will actually increase their chances because they're going to develop other skills in other sports that are going to be beneficial to the sport they ultimately settle on. But, I just think that the pendulum has swung so far to the other way, and we've, now with new recruiting rules and calendars and shorter calendars and what's going on, like you have to be aware of what that looks like and, be smart about where you're spending money and where you're going and who's going to be seeing you and what this ultimately looks like. And, at the end of the day, like it's still going to happen. I'll beat this drum for a while. It's still going to happen that people are going to do it, but you just have to be okay with spending the money and going down there and not being seen by anybody or then wondering like, why was nobody there? Like, well, this is the landscape and this is what it looks like. Like you need to do a little bit of investigation on your end too.
Yeah. And there's only certain parts of the country where you can play baseball in November, right? So for vast majority of the country, you're legitimately traveling. Like if you're from Miami and there's a tournament down the road and all you do is play baseball and it's just a weekend tournament and it's not getting in the way of what you're doing from a lifting perspective, what you're doing in the gym, then yeah, like by all means, go play. But if you're traveling down to these tournaments and you're sacrificing your ability to get in a gym, which is where 99% of kids need to focus, is how big and fast and strong can you get in the off season? We've talked about this a ton of times. It just doesn't make a ton of sense. So make sure you're looking at your schedule. If money's tight or money matters, then make sure you're using that money wisely. And, like you said, you're talking a couple grand to go down there for a weekend and, you could probably spend that somewhere else more efficiently, more effectively. But I guess the crux of it is like, just understand the rules. They're out there. We talk about them all the time, easily accessible. If you Google NCAA baseball recruiting calendar, you can get a link to the most active one that runs from August 1st, 2025 through
July 31st,
all the way through
July 31st.
Yeah. And you can see everything. You can see the quiet periods. You can see the evaluation periods. You can see the dead periods. You can see the shutdown periods. But it's pretty simple. October 13th kicks off, what is essentially 5.5 months where coaches will not be leaving campus. Division I coaches will not be leaving campus to evaluate players. I'm sure we'll fire this one up again in January to talk about, if you're paying to go to some indoor event, just understand that there's not going to be any Division I coaches there. But know the rules, know the timelines, make informed decisions on where you're spending your time and where you're spending your money, and don't just blindly go play games if it doesn't make a ton of sense for you. I will die on this hill that the 12 at bats, or say you go down there for 2 consecutive weekends, the 25 at bats you get over the course of those 6 or 8 games, maybe, they're not moving the needle. Being in the weight room and sleeping in your own bed and doing all that kind of stuff is gonna move the needle than a few extra at bats.
Oh yeah, and what's it doing if you're an arm?
Yeah,
how many innings have you thrown? Where are you at? How healthy are you? Like what are you doing there?
That's a whole nother
it's not even about the recruiting aspect of it. It's like, are you going to be healthy enough to, like, are you going to ever shut down? Are you ever going to take a little bit of time off? Are you going to get in the way? Like, what are you doing? If you're just going to go throw all the time and then wonder why your velo never ticks up ever again, like, I have an idea. Maybe don't throw 12 months out of the year. Maybe shut down for a little bit. Maybe lift. Maybe do something. Because eventually, if you're 140 pounds, you can only move the ball so much. Like, you can only move it so fast at whatever your weight is. Eventually, you're going to have to start putting on weight to try to throw harder.
Well, and think about this. There's not a professional pitcher or a college pitcher who's throwing the ball with any meaningful intent in November.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're in the World Series, but like I know for a fact most big league arms, most professional arms are shut down come that point in time. The only ones that aren't, and let's be honest, the only ones that aren't are the ones that were hurt at some point in time, and they're just on a completely different schedule of ramp up. But at some point in the very near future, they're likely going to be shutting down. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a different animal. We're talking about the less than 1% that can do it. But when less than 1% who are the best in the world at what they do it, I don't understand why we don't. Like, we want to replicate their mechanics and we want to replicate their swing and their defense and all this stuff, but we don't want to do any of the other stuff. We don't want to do their prep. We don't want to do their rest, their recovery. We don't want to do any of that stuff. And I get it. Some of it you can't do because you're not a professional athlete, but you can damn sure shut down. You can make sure you're getting enough sleep. You can get in the weight room. You can do all of these things that the best in the world do to give yourself a chance. But for some reason, we believe that 14 to 17-year-olds are just superhuman and can do whatever they want, and not what the best in the world that are 24 to 40 are doing. But what do I know? I'm just a retired baseball coach. But at some point, you're going to have to shut down. My point in all of it is like, why, if you're just going to continually throw all the time, then you can't get mad when you plateau or you can't make that jump at some point in the future.
Yep, 100%. 100%, Coach. Anything else you want to add to this topic?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you learned something. We'll check in with you next week. Thank you. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.